Had I gone in when America was high and had fallen flat at this point of time, it would have been bad. But I am working my way through. I am getting those products. We are distributing in the whole of USA, Canada, UK, the Caribbean islands, which includes Bahama, Haiti, and we are going Africa, and we are going to Canada. I said UK, and this is where the distribution is as present. I want to increase the distribution into African countries, and when India's non-compete gets over in 2030, I bring those products in India, and I have the confidence to create another film.
Fantastic. I think that is the quest for entrepreneurs always, right? They are unhappy. That is what we always talk, or whenever we teach, that entrepreneurs are unhappy. They want to do something for the society, they want to create the prosperity, they have lots of ideas.
To create wealth.
Right?
But believe me, everybody, all my employees, whenever they speak to me, they are so happy. They're selling for a lot more than what they did when I was there. So I'm happy for them. Whenever I feel low, I talk to them. They are happy. They're this thing. I said, fine. Everybody's happy along the way.
Wonderful.
So create wealth, create something great, and when you cannot see now. I used to know Amrutanjan. It was a brand to reckon with when I was young, but it did not sell out. There were so many people who wanted to buy Amrutanjan at that time. It did not sell out. Held on. But then came Move, and Move swept it through. And today he's just left high and dry. So you should know when you can't help the brand any further. If you cannot give it what it requires at that point of time, then gracefully quit and build something else to that level.
Wonderful. I think we must appreciate that the energy level she has, creating one business with a kind of reaching it at the monopoly level and then selling it and again coming out with the new idea with a lot of bundle of energy.
American business is so different.
That is what I wanted to ask the question now. Because you moved from the local business to the global business.
American business is so different. They don't have the sales force that we have. That entire office, we have a sales of 7 million right now, which is not much, but there are only 4 people in the office. The receptionist doubles up as the van person. She delivers to the warehouse. They call it a warehouse, we call it go down. But she delivers to the warehouse. The warehouse person doubles up. Everywhere, the manpower is so... Here we have so many people around us. There are no people. Okay, now the department stores, they have brokers. They come to your office and you have to deal with the brokers for various chains of department store. Now, the beauty stores or whatever stores you want to know. Now, there you cannot demonstrate as we demonstrate so freely over here. There you are insured. You have to have an aesthetician who knows the beauty business to touch your skin. You can't touch anyone's skin like that. You can't talk any rubbish. Your ingredients, people are very discerning over there. They Google out each ingredient in your product. Your ingredients have to be explained. What each ingredient does to your skin has to be explained. So it is such a good formal market, and people are very, very conscious over there. People are very well turned out. They are very bothered about how they look. They are gymming every day. They are very well groomed. They come to office like it's out of a Vogue book or something, full with stilettos and everything. You feel like a sack of potatoes over there. But I feel this is where India will be in the next 50 years. So it is a good eye-opener, because how our market is also becoming discerning. Our women are also learning. Our women also know what is good for them and what is not good for them, what they should be using on their skin, what they should not be using on their skin, etc., etc. So this is like a jump slot into the future, of India. So I feel I'm really blessed, because now I'm having an experience of both the worlds. I'm having experience of all kinds of women, from the black Americans to the Americans to the local Americans to the English people to Africans to everybody, and I feel I'm really blessed. I feel there is a time when everybody has to move on.
Fantastic. I think now can we open up the question answer session kind of thing?
Had I not been successful as I am today, I may have been a little down. But with success, with appreciation, with acceptance of your work, I think that spurs you on.
What was your proudest moment during this journey of entrepreneurship?
Well, I was in a shop, shopping for my groceries, and somebody came and picked up film. I was just looking, because out of so many soaps she picked up film, then she picked up a 5-liter can, and I was so happy. I said, see, this is my power. My power doesn't lie in the money I have in the bank or the turnover I make. Those millions of users who I have, that is my power.
In fact, he asked a very good question to you, that you moved from local market to the global market.
This
now.
is an
So
existing company, sir.
challenges?
This is an existing company already running. They have they had a turnover of 6.5 million, which will be 7 million this year. But I am only giving my inputs to it. What I am trying to do over there is getting some of the products manufactured out of India to make them cost effective, to make their margins better, you know. So, and I am introducing them to new markets which I had got as an exporter in FEM, etc. So I am putting in my inputs and seeing that the company grows, because I have put a lot of money behind that company. So it is a small company. It's run on a day-to-day basis very well over there, very efficiently, I must say. And I feel very great going there and working with them.
Good.
Yeah.
Would you think that you love the startup energy and that's where you want to be most of the time?
I would have loved it if they'd done 15 million, but I suppose what I saw synergy in and what I could afford a stake in was this company.
Okay, in fact, I want.
Why did you name a age FEM?
FEM is the suffix of all female products. In fact, I wanted FEM to be a basket for all female products, and one of the female products was Barcode also. I went into a line of clothes also, because I felt that was a part of grooming. The younger generation, when I was seeing my daughters grow up, people who grew up in jeans and t-shirts, when they were at a workplace, it was difficult for them to adapt to saris or shalwar kurta. So I thought there should be a business line, which was a western line, and which could be done by 25 plus women, you know. So it would be easier for them to move about. It should be straight lines, and that was not the important clothes, because see, the whole structure of the physique of Indian women versus those women is totally different. We have a waist, they don't have a waist too much. We have the parts, we have voluptuous thighs and hips and things like that. They have tapered, and if they grow everywhere same. But we grow, we grow in places disproportionately. So in our clothes, we need to hide those bulges. We need straight line clothes, we need clothes to hide those bulges, and I wanted to introduce a line of clothes which a woman could use post-pregnancy, 25 plus, when she goes to work, you know.
In fact, she has started a new activity, that is the Botanica and Barcode as a formal wear for the women. My question is, like, how do you identify those ideas?
From the women themselves, you know, our ears were tuned in. We had a cosmetic license. We could manufacture anything over the earth. We had a pharma license. We could manufacture anything. But we only gave the women what they wanted, what they needed, what in their daily lives they can use, and it would enhance their quality of life. You know, so when we were demonstrating, we had women telling us, oh, this is, you know, this doesn't suit me, I want to wear this, but you know, I bought something from Macy's and it is so tight and it's bulging and this and that. So, you know, that's where you pick up your ideas from. You don't give what you can manufacture, which is what most people do. They manufacture what they want and then they go on bombarding and making you use it. But we wanted to give people what they wanted, what they needed, what they needed in their everyday lives to make their lives more better, you know. Please.
Did you come across any time when you felt that the growth was tapering off, other than the exit? I think, was there any other time where you had to do something different?
Yeah, growth tapered off the moment I went to cash and carry business. You know, it really hit us because people deliberately started ordering less, you know, so that they have to pay less. And I don't know on the hindsight whether that was such a wise thing to do, because a person has this much money to spend, alright? And then if he has to pay upfront a part of that money to you, he has to budget for his other things also. So maybe what he orders from you will have to be limited. You know, maybe he'll order twice, and maybe he will, reaching that product to him twice would be more expensive, or reaching that product to him 3 times would be more expensive. But he will not order what he really wants. He will order only what he can afford. So while I went on to do this cash and carry thing, which I thought was a great thing to do at that point of time, because it really saw coffers fill up, I felt in the long run, I don't know whether that curtailed sales to a certain extent. Of course, it based out for a while, and then again it picked up, because the real demand has to be caught. And the retailers understood that itna firm late hai to big jata hai, you know, so they don't want to even keep their shelves empty. So it started, it evened out in the end, but that was a limiting factor. It is.
Was it a deliberate effect done to create an artificial scarcity to increase your product sale?
It was deliberate because we wanted to create a bank balance. No, you know, this chasing for money was not my cup of tea, you know, and especially being a lady, nobody takes you seriously at that point of time. So chasing for money was not. I said, bhale jitna bhi hove, but let it be genuine sales and let them pay for it, you know.
I have another question. You obviously have picked up all the management fundas, you know, but when you started the business, you kind of did everything on your own, bootstrapped and so on and so forth. But subsequently, I think Dr. Kankar asked you about building the team, etc. When you grew so fast, obviously you probably had challenges in operations, in finance, in all different departments. How did you manage building the team and keeping the people and training them and so on and so forth? Did you have somebody who took care of it, or you had to do it yourself? Or?
Yeah, I kept executives, you know, marketing executives, women like me who understood bleach, of course, but each woman had to manage a territory and demonstrators in that territory.
How about production?
And initially what we had to do is to send the product to the demonstrators, and the demonstrators had to sell the product and you know, remit the money to us before we had a distribution channel. So initially it was like that. Then when the distributors came, we had a sales force. Then we had, you know, we had a distribution manager. Then we got an ex-HLL person, ex-JL Morrison person. So then they started building up the teams, and then they knew what to do. And you know, we just started, you know, then sitting and supervising, getting MIS reports and things like that. You have to at one stage go professional.
How easy was it for FAME to pass on the raw material increase cost to the customers? That is number one.